But you can't retain a majority if your schools are indoctrinating students in leftist claptrap. So that concerns me. Well, I've written all these books. I mean, I have this academic Bill of Rights that can start. I think what the legislature did with and Lois Colcourse, who's one of your legislators, she's doing a really great job at fighting this. But it's not really on the radar of the Republican Party. And that's a big problem. But in Texas, you've begun the reform of the textbooks. Unfortunately, they're still going to be taught by communists. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing. And the second thing, in Arizona, they passed a law that says that there will be no public monies for courses ethnic studies courses that teach race solidarity against others. If you want to know how bad the universities are, just read, I can't remember the title of the book, but there was 2 really good books written about or just remember the lacrosse case at Duke, where they hung and destroyed the lives of 3 young men, all of them innocent, on the basis of a pathological, criminal, child-abusing liar. And the reason and they were hung, and the whole faculty, 88 members of the faculty, condemned them, and the president of the university cut off the lacrosse season and barred the kid from going to class. And what was their real crime? They were white. They were Christians, and they were successful. That was their crimes. That is a communist mentality that has infected the faculty. It's the liberal arts faculty at Duke University, rated the 5th best, highest quality university in the country by U.S. News and World Report. That's how serious the problem is. So before I don't want to forget this. One of the big problems that conservatives have is you guys don't like politics, and that's a good thing. I mean, you're very, as I say, you're civilized. Politics is not it's not a civil or a civilized sport. So because you don't like politics, you want a quick fix. I always have conservatives coming in. If the Supreme Court, if we get one justice on the Supreme Court and they make this decision, we can get, no you can't. You can't get rid of this problem that way. It's not going to be one election. It's a war, and it's going to be a long war. So I hope you guys are in this for the long haul.
That is exactly where I want to take the questioning next, because we've got 160 some odd days until the general election. I don't know that we had enough of these to pass out, and we'll make sure that everybody knows how to get them, but the title of this book that Mr. Horowitz wrote is The Art of Political War for Tea Parties. What can we do between now and the general to really help refine our message? What does the left do well that we do so poorly at? And how can we do it better? Let
me say, I think in what is it, 6 months, in the next 6 months, the most important thing you can do is true the vote. As the election fraud is rampant. There's a chance this year to unseat some really bad people, but you have to win the election by 3 to 5 points. This is what was told to me by a Democratic consultant who built the most powerful Democratic machine in my state, but regrets it. He said, if you guys, meaning Republicans, don't win by 3 to 5%, we will steal that margin. So that's your immediate task. In my little story at the beginning, I said that the way they proceed is by framing indictments. You think of the left, they're like hellfire preachers. You're damned if you're a Republican. But each of the damnations, racism, sexism, behind that is a left-wing victim group. Blacks, Hispanics, women, gays, and so forth. And that's because I don't think they figured this out. They do it by instinct. But the reality is that in a democracy like ours, there's the central romance of our politics is the romance of the underdog. And there's a good reason for that. You remember in the Star Wars trilogy, which at the time was the most widely seen film ever made. You got this little group, one of them is named Han Solo, little group, ragtag group of people, and they're going up against the Empire, and everybody in that empire speaks with an English accent. That's the way our country was born. We were the little guys, and we took on the biggest empire in the world, and we won. And, that's the romance of American capitalism, that everybody has an opportunity to succeed and to, start from nothing and become Bill Gates or whatever. That is the American dream. So anybody who argues and seems to be arguing on the side of the American dream has got a big advantage in a political battle. Unfortunately, Republicans look at politics like a management problem. So they talk about what's efficient, what works. They never put the people in front. They never carry the small victim. They never first say how that bad policy or this bad government operation affects the most vulnerable among us, the least among us. The Democrats, as I say, they do it by instinct. They invent victims. But conservatives, because the Democrats do it, because the left does it, they think it's unclean. Now, this is a year when conservatives are undergoing a transformation. 3 years ago, if you saw 10 conservatives marching on Washington, you'd say, oh my, this is a miracle. This never happens. Now there's 1 million. The reason conservatives do not want to march is because that's collectivism. Conservatives are individuals. Well, I'm not marching in step with that guy. I'm my own person. In a war, you have to have unit cohesion is what it's called. If our military operated that way, we would lose every war that we fought, and it doesn't. And so without becoming leftists, and without becoming collectivists, you have to find a way to march together, and you have to find a way to use that underdog, the oppressor-oppressed model against them. And I give you a really easy example. If you listen to Republicans talk about, when they do talk about the schools, mainly the conservative response is, okay, these leftists are going to ruin this public school system, I'll take my kid out. I'll homeschool them or I'll send them to private school. That's a good solution for your kid, but it's not a good solution for the country because it leaves those schools functioning and ruining the lives of all these kids. If you look at every inner city in America, at any size, whether I'm Houston or Dallas, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, Harlem, South Central Los Angeles, every one of them, the city councils, the boards of education, the school districts, are 100% controlled by the Democrats and progressives and have been for 100 years. Everything that's wrong with the inner cities in America that policy can affect, Democrats are responsible for.